What's going on, guys? Today I want to take a look at the MCU's newest superhero, Monica Rambeau. She's been great in the show WandaVision, and it will be interesting to see what direction Marvel takes the character. In comics, she's extremely powerful. If the MCU stays true with her powers, she could easily give Captain Marvel a run for her money. So let's get into her origins. Monica was born and raised in New Orleans, and like the MCU, her mother is Maria Rambeau, who was a successful seamstress. Although her father's never mentioned in the MCU, he is around in the comics, and his name is Frank Rambeau, who was a firefighter. And initially, neither of her parents had military background, but after the Captain Marvel movie, Marvel retconned her comic book story so that both her parents served in the US military, and that's where they met and eventually got married. So Monica first appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man annual in 1982, and in this issue we get a good sense of who she is and how she obtained her powers. Monica was a lieutenant for the New Orleans Harbor Patrol, so basically the cops on water, and one day she goes into her office and she finds an old man waiting for her, and he tells her that he's a professor and an old friend of her grandfather's. And he was on the verge of a huge discovery to be able to tap into the energy of alternate universes and dimensions. But when he learned that the man funding his research was going to use this discovery to create a weapon of mass destruction, he abandoned his research. But the professor believes that they're still trying to finish his work, and he wants Monica to come check it out and hopefully put an end to it. Monica's a bit skeptical of the professor's claim, but agrees to go out and check it out with him, where she finds the man was conducting his research on a leased out oil rig. Monica drives a small boat out to the oil rig with the professor, who starts to call her captain since she's the one driving the boat. When they get to the rig, Monica is able to gain access to the high security oil rig using some questionable methods. She's able to talk with the man who took over the professor's research, until an alarm goes off when the professor decides to sneak onto the rig himself, and both Monica and him are apprehended. And the bad guys decide to demonstrate how powerful their weapon is by destroying an entire US military base. Monica, not knowing what else to do, just starts to beat the crap out of the device. And she does this until it explodes. And this explosion creates a tear in our universe to get to another universe. Monica is sucked into the tear, which is a hole of pure energy, until she's able to break free, but she ends up absorbing all of that energy. And this is very similar to how Monica gained her powers in the MCU. When she was going through Wanda's hex, Monica then absorbed a ton of that energy, which altered her body. But this exposure to energy allows Monica to change her body to any form of energy. Monica and the professor were able to successfully destroy the device and escape the rig. A few days later, the media interviews a surviving soldier from the oil rig and says that the only name given to the woman who was attacking was Captain by the professor. So the media dubs her Captain Marvel. And with her new superpowers, Monica goes to New York City and searches for scientists who can help her control her powers, because she feels that she's not able to contain all the energy in her body. And when she gets to New York, Spider-Man sees her and his Spidey sense starts going off, and this makes him believe that she's a threat and a bad guy. And he attacks her, slapping her right in the face. Which I'm starting to see a trend with Spider-Man and slapping women in the face. First there was Storm, Mary Jane. Seems like he's got a real problem. Anyway, eventually Monica is able to reach Tony Stark, who's able to help her control her powers, and she's then invited to join the Avengers team. So let's actually talk about her powers. After her body was altered from energies from alternate dimensions, she's able to change her body into any form of electromagnetic energy at will. So her body could be changed to radio waves, light, electricity, x-rays. But like all comic characters, in time, their abilities will change due to the character gaining a better understanding of how they work, and often just by writers who need their powers to do certain things for certain stories. But over the years, she's been able to display a number of abilities. She can change her appearance by being able to manipulate her energy to take the form of other people. So essentially, she could become a shapeshifter. She has the ability to fly and travel at super speeds. She has invisibility to the human eye, just by being able to turn into energy that's not visible to the human eye. She has intangibility, just by changing into an energy form that is able to travel through solid objects. For example, like when you yell really loud through a thin wall, those sound waves can travel through that wall. She can duplicate any energy that she encounters, so her powers really aren't limited to just energies on Earth. She can absorb energy, so if Thor was to shoot a lightning bolt at her, she'd just be able to absorb that lightning into herself without any harm. She can emit energy blasts of any energy of her liking. And finally, she's immortal. This is a relatively new discovery as well, and I guess it kind of makes sense. Monica is a being made of energy, and if energy can never be created or destroyed, only transferred, then Monica can never truly die. But those are her main powers, and even with those, she's extremely powerful. When you can just absorb any attack, who can really hurt you? Anyway, so she joined the Avengers, and she was actually a pretty long time member of the team. She joined in 1982 and stayed an active member until 1988, which is a pretty good run considering she's not one of the main Avenger members like Captain America or Iron Man. And during her membership, she actually took on the role of leader of the Avengers. This is an actual elected role in the team, and she was nominated as chairman by Captain America himself. This is after the Wasp stepped down as leader, and Captain America was too busy running his emergency hotline. Yeah, that was a thing for a while. She eventually does leave the team though, after sustaining injuries too great for her to really continue. And this is during a battle against Namor's wife, who turned into a giant sea creature. It was kind of weird. She was on a few smaller teams throughout the years, but her next big role came when she joined the Mighty Avengers, which wasn't really an official team, and this took place during the Infinity Story, which is a really good story. But the main Avengers team is off in space, fighting a race called the Builders. So Thanos sees this as a great time to invade Earth, just because most of the main heroes are off-world. And initially, Thanos is just decimating all the remaining heroes of Earth. There are a few pockets of the world that's able to put up a good fight, like Wakanda, New York City. And Monica's in New York City when this happens. So she bands together with Luke Cage, Superior Spider-Man, who's actually Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man's body, and eventually Blue Marvel. It sounds like everyone's hoping that Monica is how Blue Marvel is able to be introduced into the MCU, because the two of them used to date, and he's a really cool character. Super OP. And when Monica's fighting Thanos' forces as a Mighty Avenger, Proxima Midnight basically right away singles out Monica to be the first person they need to take down, because she is just decimating all of her forces. She does get stabbed by Proxima Midnight, which infects her with some anti-protons, but Blue Marvel's able to save her, and because of comics, this actually makes her a stronger character. Because what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. They didn't give the smoothest reasonings of why she became even stronger, but and just to demonstrate how strong she is, she's actually able to destroy Shumagorath during this fight. I mean, it wasn't a full strength, but it's still pretty impressive either way. The Mighty Avengers eventually disband. This is when she joins the government-sanctioned team called the Ultimates. The whole basis of this team was take all of Marvel's super powerful heroes and make them basically their own Avengers team, but they fight on a universal scale, not just Earth issues. They made it a whole comic series that didn't last very long, and eventually that team is rolled into the Alpha Flight team. The other thing I wanted to touch on was her many different superhero names. So as I mentioned, her original name was Captain Marvel, but she had the name way before Carol Danvers ever had it in comics. And the reason she gave it up was because the original Captain Marvel's son showed up, was like, hey, give me my daddy's name back. And Monica, being a reasonable woman, gives him the name. I mean, it's his dead dad's name, so how can you really say no? So she adopts a new name, and she calls herself Photon. This is probably the name that she takes in the MCU because that was her mother's nickname. Strangely though, that little SOB Captain Marvel's son comes back again. It was like, yeah, I like the name Photon. I'm gonna be taking that too. Which she's not as happy with, but eventually does give that little punk the name Photon, and she changes her name to Pulsar. When she joined the Mighty Avengers, she doesn't really give a great reason of why she changes it again. She just says that she wants to rebrand, and that's when she gives herself the name Spectrum. I believe that's her current comic name. But that's basically the main points of her character. She's super powerful. It'll be interesting to see what the MCU's take is on her powers. But that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys liked it. If you did, slap that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.